It shows the first time, so I wasn't sure. Well, they're like when they can, they have a little party. No, when they run canning, they move everything out, and then they've got benches and so on. Maybe if you're gonna have one way to see it is determine, right, what's the primary use? Primarily brewing with accessory use. And by school, it's flexible. And all of that extent, you couldn't see what's the principle. At 140 seats, it's there are 86 inside this 2 outside. So I guess it would depend on how many people and you did a tasting around right. Pretty big for all the brewers.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll call the meeting of the Zoning Hearing Board to order. My name is Robert Canaro. On my right is Alan Salinger. On my left is Scott Unger. We have 3 matters on our agenda for this evening, and in a moment our secretary will call the list. When the appellant or appellee or applicant hears their case called, please indicate their presence and indicate whether you're represented by counsel. She will then ask for that same case whether there are any objectors. Please, if there are, raise your hand so we can get a count. And then she will ask if there are any interested persons, not necessarily objectors. And if there are also, raise your hand so we can get a count. Okay?
Case number 1, Appeal of St. Elmo Development, LLC, PA Venture Capital, INC at 1940 Fairview Street. Is the appellant present?
Yes, represented by William Malcolmus.
The appellant is present. Are there any objectors to case number 1? 3. Are there any interested parties not necessarily objectors to case number 1? 4. Case number 2, special use application of 1518 Walnut Street, LLC at 1518-1526 Walnut Street. Is the appellant present?
Yes.
The appellant is present. Are there any objectors to case number 2? 2. Are there any interested parties not necessarily objectors to case number 2? No. Case number 3, continued appeal of 631-645 North Jordan Street, LLC at 315-325 Linden Street and 328 Linden Street. Is the appellant present?
Yes, represented by William Malcolmus.
The appellant is present. Are there any objectors to case number 3? No objectors. Are there any interested parties, not necessarily objectors, to case number 3? No.
All right, the first case we'll hear is case number 3. That was continued from some months ago. With the applicant and counsel, please come forward.
Okay, before we start taking testimony, when we were last here, when we were last here, we essentially had concluded our presentation of our case, but the board had some questions with respect to the application, and there was a number of questions raised, and I think Mr. Cam Hyman, I just think his grandfather, I knew his grandfather.
Was his name on it too?
Okay.
That's all.
So he's prepared to answer those questions.
Okay, would you like to come up here? Would it be convenient to come up here or not?
It's fine, I just want to point things out on your plan though, so.
Okay, well, just stay there, just
Okay, I'll
raise your
wait.
hand. And
So, I have a,
Still under oath, I guess, from the last time, right?
Yeah. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
I have a list of all the questions you had last time, so if I can just go through them one by one.
Please.
And address them. Okay, Mr. Unger had asked that we put the square footage of each dwelling unit on each dwelling unit, and if you go to page 3, it is there. Of these new. Find it, should be A1, I think. Yeah, square footage in each. Is that it? Yeah, okay. Let's check everyone. Oh, that might not be the right plan. Hold on, let me get it right. Wait, that's the second floor, that's all. Here we go. There it is, right there, square footage. Okay, so that's on each apartment. The second thing you asked for, Mr. Unger, was pedestrian circulation, and after speaking to both engineers working on this project, they said to tell you there is none because it is only the sidewalks that is the circulation. I don't really know what that means, but I am relaying it.
Well, let me ask this then. Where is the, I'm looking at sheet R1, where is the,
Okay, so this is the expansion.
yep, where's the primary entrance?
Primary entrance will be right here, and right here, and then there's also a third one right under this one.
Where is the handicap accessible entrance?
The handicapped accessible entrance is right here. Right.
So what I was looking for was internal site circulation, you know, from particularly accessible route from handicap parking spot to accessible.
Okay, well, the ramp was built right here. I asked both engineers, and the response was it's the sidewalk, so maybe I didn't give you, would you prefer us to move these handicapped accessible spaces over?
I'm not the author of the American with Disabilities Act, so they need to verify that they meet that for the accessible route for the spaces.
Okay.
And I understand that from the other parking areas, you're relying on existing or proposed sidewalks, and then I guess then there is no internal site circulation for pedestrians.
Right. Okay, so the third thing, this is definitely a Mr. Salinger point, was the landscaping. So we have added green space and trees to pretty much every available spot we could do it, including, if I can, this building, which I will get to in a minute as it relates, sorry, relates to the parking. So you're gonna actually, you'll be hearing this building at another hearing, but I just wanted to point out, since it does relate somewhat to this building, because this parking and this parking is devoted to it, we've also created all the green space here just in advance of your concerns and curiosity. So pretty much any empty space has been devoted to green space here, and here, and all along this parking spot. So unless you see a spot we didn't see, I don't know where else to put it. Okay? I'll keep answering questions, and then, of course, you can ask me if you need. I don't know which one of you had asked about where the lights are going. They're all designated the street lamps. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Each one has a 1 foot by 2 foot banner hanging, or 1 foot by 3 foot banner hanging on the lights. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. These are existing, by the way. And 1, 2, 3. So there are those lights. There's the banner, the green space we already addressed, and the parking layout, which I have given you here. That's existing, and you had asked on this plan to designate which spaces are devoted to 315 Linden, and it's shown in the notes here. It's going to be, this is the relocation of the R.J. Corman spaces. By the way, the building's right here, just for your perspective, it's up here. And this is the new 28 spaces for the additional 14 apartments. And according to all the notes I wrote that day, I believe that answers all of your questions.
And the 1 by 3 foot banners are on how many light posts?
They're on each one, which is, okay, there's 12 total. There's 3 on American Parkway on the north side. Here, would you like me to show you on the plan? Would that be easier?
No, just tell me.
Okay,
I'm making notes.
3 on American Parkway on the south side. 3 on Linden Street on the north side, and 3 on Linden Street on the south side. And the intent is to create a sort of entry into downtown Allentown.
And it's, in addition to those, it's the 3 existing light poles that are on American Parkway on the east side of the building property.
That's not an addition, that's including. So in other
Right,
words,
but in terms of banners, those are getting banners.
they already have them. They already have them. Those 3 have them. So it's 9 more to make it more than an entry. And I think that was all the questions I had written down that you had.
Just so I don't forget, we offer all the exhibits.
Which one is this, Attorney Malcolm? You know, Tabitha, which exhibit, this one, that all these plans were marked as 1, but is it
Right.
is it number?
That would be in my stuff right now.
Can we mark it number 1 for this hearing?
Oh, they were there last hearing.
Yes. That would be upstairs in the file.
Okay,
Yes.
You know, we'll keep-
so let's,
like in my notes.
Were you pointing right here? I don't know, but I think it's not in existence. It should be in the key.
What sheet are you on now?
He's on the site plan for the other building. It doesn't really relate to this hearing, but he's asking what this, now this, is that, it says pole, is that a light pole or is that a telephone? Right there.
Traffic signal.
They would be existing though. So this doesn't, this is on the 333 Court building. This is a different building, but we're not here for that, but I don't know. Here's another one right there. Yeah, actually, I think it is a telephone pole or utility pole because I think I recall them running out. There's 2 more along the side here. Here. 1, 2, and then 3. It's a utility pole.
what's the life of those banners, Ms. Hyman? Do you know the approximate life of those?
I mean, they tell you they should last 10 years, but one of the conditions Mr. Unger put on the last building was that they must be maintained in good repair. And I'm noticing I'm being filmed here. Is that within the zoning? Am I allowed to be filmed?
Excuse me, I wasn't aware of that. What is the purpose of this bill?
I'm not sure what the protocol is on that.
I mean, it's a public meeting, isn't it?
Public meeting.
It's a public meeting.
I'm sure it's nothing good.
Could the gentleman tell us why he's filming?
No, we record everything. We come to city council, me and my partner at Let's Build a New Allentown, just film everything. We put it online. We have no particular purpose. That's all.
Okay, so in any event, I'm sorry, what was the question?
The life of the banners.
They're supposed to be 10 years. Mr. Arbor put a condition last time on the last approval that it must be maintained in good condition or replaced if they start to show anywhere. They cost a lot, so I would hope they would last 10 years, but we'll see.
Okay, thank you.
The only thing I can assure you is certainly with an investment of this level with all these apartments, I mean, the curb appeal is very important to us, so we're not going to let something as insignificant as a banner diminish the property. But I understand that your concern is not just me, it's the future of if they're with my kids or whatever. Yeah, I get it.
The 28 additional spaces within 500 feet, those are across Linden Street, or am I wrong about that?
You're right.
Okay. And you own that?
Yes.
So we don't have any real documentation on the perpetuity of those, do we? I mean, you own them, and both sites are your project, so you obviously will use them for that, but are we concerned that there's some...
You could grant an easement.
Pardon me?
You could grant an easement.
But in the past, it was also, according to Barbara Nemeth, the spaces associated, well, let me first point out that the principal parking lot, which is across Linden Street, is also owned by me, but a separate property, which is not on here, right here, this whole parking lot. Okay. That's owned by me, that's a separate property, and we didn't grant an easement as far as I know, I could be wrong. We had other spaces associated with this property that were a lease agreement that Barbara said that since they were already off-site, we don't need any other variance or anything, we're just moving from one off-site location to another off-site location, which were all of these and those. That was the discussion I had with Barbara before she retired, but.
So you'd prefer to have a lease?
No. My point was that, in other words, that we had
The RJ Corman spaces that were already leased, she
Yeah.
allowed him just to move the lease to a different parcel.
Right. But if you want me to enter into a lease with myself on the other building, I can do that.
The lot, the smaller lot that's been there before, in the gray on R1, is that, all of that parking is for the subject?
It is now, but it wasn't part of that parcel. I bought it
Right,
to get the parking.
But there's no, whereas with the large Gordon Street building,
You mean the Hamilton, the limited Hamilton? Oh, you mean the Gordon Street building?
where you're using additional parking, that's, whereas this is.
No, this isn't Gordon. This is Linden, Hamilton, and Race. This is the
I'm
Phoenix
sorry.
building.
The Phoenix building.
Right, the one you approved before.
Right, so the Phoenix building, this is on that track, or this is parking that could be used in the future for the Phoenix.
Yeah, and we're going to come to you about that, but we also have we have almost 500 more
But
spaces.
this parking lot is now entirely dedicated to this.
Yes, as would these spaces be here,
Right.
here, and here, because they are a different elevation from all of these spaces and all of these. This entrance is going to all be inside. So this actually feels like part, so the other lot is simply right here. The one that you said is devoted is right here, and these are going to be devoted.
So sometimes, now that this is all entirely, and this is known, sometimes what we've done is when, the present use, even before the current application, really needs this parking, and there's no two ways about it. So sometimes what we've done is we've tied the deed together, we require them to file some instrument to connect so that you couldn't sell one without the other.
Right. Now, if you'd like me to enter into a long-term lease like I did on the RJ Corman spaces, I could do that because I'm entering into a lease with myself. I mean, they're different entities.
Yeah.
So the lease could last as long as you have the apartments. If you
Right.
have the apartment uses, then the lease could end.
Well, another one that you approved was also, was a building on Railroad Street that we leased spaces for a long time from a church. So that's not uncommon for us.
matter of record, those spaces are tied to this project, so if they were separated, this wouldn't show a sale unless somebody moved to the front.
Well, that's why having some other type of instruments is often useful, just so that it doesn't, it's not up to the zoning office to have a master tabulation of every parking space in the city as to what's dedicated.
Mr. Hammond, how many spaces are there as you're pointing on that first page, the gray area?
This, I think, is 57.
58, okay.
Which, by the way, is mainly empty anyway. So, I mean, we have a bus station here, the spaces just aren't used, but I know you need them, so, this is 50, I believe it's 57 or 58.
So that's the
This
southwest
is-
corner of Linden and American Parkway.
Southwest corner of the American Women's Park, yes, American Parkway, Linden. Yeah, 328, Linden, right.
So at the very least, we could say that the parking from our standpoint, the parking for the apartments is predicated on the use of the building, but if there's something more formal.
I do two different things. So we've got the 328 Linden parking, which is all dedicated to this building, and I think that,
That was probably covered by your prior approval.
it was, but you're adding more units here.
Okay.
And so while the parking for those is coming from somewhere else, I think now that we know where this is, and which obviously we need this parking for that, we could do something with this and then do something separate. I'm not sure exactly how to treat these. I guess you can always, it's a lease between two entities, you could always change that without notifying the city, but at least if the city had something in writing, they'd at least know what was already prescribed, and when he comes in for another building, we know which spaces he had already dedicated. But as far as this, I think we should probably look at a deed restriction to tie these two parcels together so they can sort of.
Rather than a deed restriction, couldn't we have a long-term lease that which would be coextensive with the continuance of the apartment? So if for some reason or other he decided not to continue the apartments, and say tore that building down, then the lease would end. So it would be a lease, that could be a recorded lease, rather than an easement. Or rather than a deed restriction, because a deed restriction basically would be forever.
Mhm. All right, why don't we do it that way? And we'll make it as a condition that it be leased for as long as the property on the other corner there is being used as approved for apartments.
You want to record at least then?
And, yeah, it should probably be recorded.
Yeah, sure.
And so we'll make that a condition, you'll take care of doing that. Okay. All right,
Copies of the separated, the lease would continue until
yeah.
935.
Yeah, it can be simple, but I mean, we don't need a 50-page lease.
I could make it simple.
And I think relative, I mean, the
First simple one would be cheaper.
the 328 Linden is relatively easy because you can just indicate that it's all and list the number of parking spaces. But for the other one, I think a graphic or some attachment so that it's clear which spaces they are. That one's a little bit more.
This plan has that enumerated on there, so.
And if you want to record that page of the plan, you can choose to do that. I'm just saying that the 328 Gordon is pretty easy because you can just say all and just list the number of parking spaces. So it's not I'm stuck on Gordon.
Right. I got it.
Linden Street, then that could just be all of the whichever number on that site. And the other one, you just need some kind of graphic, whether you use this one or something else, so that anybody reviewing it could clearly tell which ones are dedicated to that.
And we hope to be before you in the next month or two, we'll have talked to Fred about that other property, so that by then we'll have addressed it. I'll give you the plan, so.
Yeah, but
Any other questions for me?
No? Any other questions? Okay, you ready for this? I think that's it, right?
I think so. I'll let the boss handle it.
I don't think you need a summary.
No, I don't think so. Are we ready? I'm satisfied with the application and what's been shown to us in the exhibits from the last hearing and this evening. Subject to the, I'll just call it tying the two together. That's adequate for these purposes, and Mr. Malcolm knows what I'm speaking of. We'll have a recorded lease, so that as long as the building is being used for apartments, the lots at 328 Linden will be available for parking. I think as far as the square footage of the lot, there's nothing we can do about that. There it is. I mean, we can't increase that. I think well-kept banners are attractive, and given the location of this property, I think they're almost, welcoming and festive, so I don't have a problem with them being up indefinitely, but they have to be maintained to be a benefit in those ways. So unless you gentlemen have any comments, I'm ready for a motion.
I would agree. I'll make a motion the application be approved, subject to the following conditions. While I don't need to see it in front of me, I'll just add a condition that the parking plan, particularly the handicap accessible parking spaces, shall meet the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I'll get to Public Works to verify that, or the planning commission or whoever the zoning office determines. And it may, the way it is, I'm not saying it doesn't, I just wanted to make sure that, particularly there's an accessible route from at least most of the ADA parking spaces actually to the entrance. Ideally, you don't want the person requiring the ADA route to have to navigate through a vehicular area without any kind of designated accessible route. So I'll make that as a condition, but it doesn't need to come back before us. I agree with you about the banners. In the previous condition, we suggested on previous projects about keeping them in good repair. I don't know, have we, as an experience, have we had an issue with banners elsewhere in the city becoming deteriorated and not being replaced? Or?
Only temporary banners that should have come down.
Okay.
That aren't manufactured the standard that these are.
I mean, while I agree with the chairman about these banners appear to be attractive and may actually be improve the aesthetics of the neighborhood, I don't want to create administrative challenges for the zoning staff. So if you think it's manageable the way we've written it, otherwise if you have other suggestions, I guess if we wanted to be really serious about this in the future, and this is no reflection on Mr. Hyman, just as I know some of the healthcare facilities have done banners as well too. I think we wanted, if you told me it was becoming a problem, I would suggest that maybe we require some type of bond to replace it so that we don't have to go wrestling around with developers. But if you're telling me it's only been an issue on people who just forgot to take them down that were temporary.
And these banners here are for a size variance in number, not for,
No, it's also the duration too.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yes.
And now in other, like I said, some of the healthcare institutions, we've provided relief for that particular issue as well too. Okay. And we talked about the parking easements, so the condition would be the recorded leases for both parking areas, describing the area and location of the parking spaces to be dedicated to this project. And I guess a final condition is that the apartments be constructed in conformity with the plan, and that includes not just the apartments, but all of the proposed landscaping, parking, and the other improvements.
Do we have an address or some way to describe the other lots? I know you pointed them out, but are they?
Well, the lot that's entirely dedicated, the parking lot that's entirely dedicated to this building is 328 Linden. I'd say Golden that time. And then you know what the address?
Yeah, I can offer you a description. It is all of the parking on the east side of 333 Court Street and the south side of 333 Court Street. Because the rest of that parking is either in the interior courtyard or over on another lot.
Do you know how many lots they are? Spaces?
Yeah, it's on the plan. I think there's 20 on the east side and 28 on the south side, which is what you require. Let me just check my.
Yeah, 26 were relocated from the RJ Corman parking.
20. Oh, you're right. 6. Yes, I'm sorry.
26 where?
26 were relocated from R.J. Corman, and that's on the east side of 333 Court Street, and I guess a little of the northeast corner. And then another 28 spaces are designated, and that's the entire south side of 333 Court Street.
Okay.
And they're all gonna be signed also.
All right. Alan, anything to add to the discussion? All right. I think that was a motion, right? Okay. Do I have a second? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. All right, Mr. Malcolm, we're gonna take case number 1 next. I think you're in on that one too, right?
Right, thank you. Okay, in my appearance for the applicant, William E. Malcolm, 509 West Linden Street, Allentown, Pennsylvania. I have some exhibits, of course, where we begin taking testimony. The first one is a copy assessment record for the subject property. Number 2 is a copy of the deed for the subject property. Number 3 is a copy of the decision by the Honorable Judge McKinley. There were four consolidated cases that were heard by Judge McKinley, and she entered an order relating to the subject property. And she made a determination of non-conformity of the subject property. Number 4, the decision of this board in application A61049, dated August 22, 2007. It was an application before this board requesting approval of 418 self-storage units and 26 vehicle storage units and other things. After the court denied that application, Subsequently, the board approved an application. In application A64678, dated October 3, 2012, and I think this is 5, is that correct?
Yes, it's 5.
In that decision, where the board approved the application of the St. Elmo to consolidate the two properties, and the deed that you have shows the property were consolidated, construct a 469-unit self-storage facility. The board, among other things, granted approval, and the decision is kind of interesting because it talks about the long history of this property before the zoning hearing, where there have been a number of previous applications that were turned down. And in that decision, the board, in paragraph on page 8, said the board is guided by the November 2008 decision of the Lehigh County Court of Common Pleas. The decision sets the standard by which this board views the change of one non-conforming use to another as it relates to this property. In 2008, the non-conforming use was that of a concrete batch plant. Sometime after January 12, 2010, buildings and appurtenances necessary to conduct concrete batch plant operations at this facility were removed. And finally, application, or exhibit number 6. This is another approval given by the board with respect to the subject property. For self-storage units and vehicle storage spaces and so on. With that, I'll call my first witness. Thompson?
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Oh, for sure.
When I was making my opening statement, I referred to the fact that there had been a previous use of this property, concrete batch plant and storage units. Is that correct?
That's correct, yep.
And is it a fact that when that use was first established, this was an industrial property?
This was industrial, correct?
Right. And so that use was established, and after it became, after the concrete batch plant and storage
I'm sorry,
units were
Attorney
in place.
Thomas. Concrete
Concrete
batch.
BATCH, batch plant and storage units, after they were established, what happened to the property in terms of zoning?
What happened to the concrete batch plant?
No, what happened to this property with respect to zoning, the zoning ordinance?
The land was, the use was changed for the land. The zoning map was changed to park.
Right. And of course, the park has limited uses that are available, correct?
Not limited to government, but very limited to any private landowners.
Okay,
And let me interrupt, when was that change made,
the change was,
approximately?
well, it was changed before the matter went before Judge McGinley. It was some years ago. Pardon?
And the ordinance is effective 2010.
No, but I think it was changed even before that.
Okay, before that case, which was in, we have the date here,
Before we went to Judge McGinley.
before 2008.
Right, that's correct.
Okay.
Now, one of the conditions of approval of this board, of the last use, was that the two properties would be merged. The two properties have been merged.
That's correct.
And can you tell the board what two properties were merged?
There's a single family house that's on Fairmont or Fairview Street.
Okay.
And we merged that property with the dominant tenement, which is the former concrete batch plant.
So historically, there had been two separate properties, but they have now been merged.
There had, at some point, we came into the zoning hearing board to try to subdivide where the home is to build another a 2-unit, I believe. We came before the zoning hearing board and we were denied that. But at some point, when we were dealing with the zoning board and also with the city of Allentown, we discussed merging the properties. And the home that exists now is really the office that is used for the existing structure, the indoor storage structure that is on the property.
Now, did the board establish any of the uses that were permitted by the board in the last decision?
Did the board,
Did the applicant?
Yes, we did begin a self-storage business on the property. We had grander plans to build 300 and change. I know Dave has a number, but we had a larger number of units that we're going to build for outside structures, but there was an existing building on the property we turned into indoor storage, and I think it was 140 some units inside that building, and as of this date, we have 31 that's actually rented.
Right, so with that, can you tell the board why the applicant did not take advantage of the previous decision of the board approving that use?
We certainly attempted it with good faith. We cleaned the property up because it was quite derelict at some point. We took all the trailers out, we took the vehicles out, we cleaned the property up. We tried to market it for a self-storage business, and we never had enough business for the inside storage to dedicate the remainder of the property to building external storage or other units for storage.
Did the board, in its approval, place certain conditions on who you could use or who you could rent to?
They did.
And what were those conditions?
If I can read from the,
Right, yeah, go ahead.
the ordinance.
From the decision?
From the decision, yes, from the zoning board decision. It was limited in the time of operation from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week. There would be no outside storage of anything, so we couldn't store contracting vehicles or large trucks or dump trucks or whatever that's there. No construction equipment on the property. It was limited to residential and commercial items, not industrial items on the property. We couldn't create any types of noise, vibration, whatnot. No hazardous substances would not allow on the property. And no generators, no signs. It was illumination signs. I know the neighbors were concerned about any type of glare coming off the property, so we weren't allowed to do that. So we were very limited in terms of how we were able to develop this into a self-storage business. Certainly we were limited in terms of the area which the property is located. It's not on a main drag. It's not where people drive consistently. It's not in an area where it's visible to the public, so someone could go, oh, I'll just park over there. It was just not the right site for the storage.
Now, can you, in summation, not in summation, but in briefly state what is it that you're asking the board to approve tonight?
We're asking the board to approve a change of a non-conforming use to another, that being from the original concrete batch plant through the storage unit to a 3-building, 120-unit workforce, affordable housing development.
And would you continue one building or 2 buildings for storage?
Just the one that exists on the property now, and because it is so lightly used, what we believe would be the best thing is because of the proposal of what we call workforce housing, and I'll certainly discuss that in a bit, but the units that we're proposing are affordable housing. There's not a lot of additional square footage. There's limited bedrooms for, it's not a 2 or 3 bedroom type of apartment complex. So storage will be probably a commodity or a necessity for some of the people who are living there. And we certainly believe that they will be utilizing the on-site storage for bicycles and for other types of add-ons.
So there's no misunderstanding. Based on Judge McGinley's decision and the previous decisions of this board, what do you consider to be the base upon which your proposed use would be compared?
As stated by Judge McGinley and as confirmed by the zoning decision in the application that you put up record, it says quite clearly,
With like 3 or 4 records, which one?
this is application A-64678.
Exhibit number 5.
Is that 6?
5.
I'm not sure.
What's the number of the decision?
The application number A-64678,
Okay.
NRA Appeal of St. Elmo Development LLC. Page 8, the first full paragraph. The board is guided by the November 2008 decision of the Lehigh County Court of Common Pleas. That decision sets the standard by which the board views a change of one non-conforming use to another as it relates to this property. In 2008, the existing non-conforming use was that of a concrete batch plant.
Okay, plus the on-site storage.
Plus on-site storage, correct?
Okay, and in addition, would you also think would be applicable for the board to consider this against your residential units against the self-storage units? Do you think that the residential units that you're proposing are less onerous than the self-storage units?
I do, for several reasons. One is that with the self-storage business, even with commercialized hours that are from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., if this facility was built out, you'd have close to 400 self-storage units on the property with cars and trucks coming in as early as 6 a.m. as late as 9 p.m. You're dealing with, if it's storage, you're dealing with large trucks, panel vans, U-Haul trucks, rental trucks, to bring a lot of the goods and services or goods that they're trying to store inside the building. And what we're trying to do is put affordable housing on the property, which by the definition of affordable housing is primarily geared for 1 or 2 residents within the apartment. A lot of these individuals will be within walking distance to Atlanta bus route. I know we have an exhibit for that. They'll have 1 car, possibly 2 cars, but typically when you have a efficiency type of apartment or a 1-bedroom apartment, you're dealing with a 1 tenant primarily. So with that being the idea and the property being so close to the downtown area, but outside the neighborhood improvement zone, while they're building sky rises or high rises for the millennials and for the people who are professional people, as the city of Allentown has identified, there is a dearth of or a lack of parking or apartments for people who are blue collar, looking to try to make a go of it.
And have you determined what the price range would be for persons who would occupy these apartments?
Certainly. The efficiency would probably go for around $695. 1 bedrooms, $895, and 2 bedrooms, and we again we're going to have limited numbers of those, but maybe $995. That's dependent, but that's the base we're going for. for these, again, smaller apartments, and not quite the flowing footprint of some of the high rises, certainly not the views, but again, in the right neighborhood where apartments are adjacent to this area, that it's residential. It certainly is a lot better than having an industrial use right next to it, and I think that makes the world of difference.
Now, I assume there's adequate on-site parking for this facility.
There is adequate on-site parking, and as we'll explain, what we're asking for is not an approval of any plan. There's no plan before the zoning hearing board at this point. What we're asking for is a use for residential apartments of up to 120 units. We would have to start with the city of Allentown and go through planning and go through all the different city departments relative to putting this use there. This certainly isn't the last step. This is really dipping your toe in the water. But in order to do any of that, we need to have confirmation from the zoning hearing board that the change of one lawful non-conforming use to another non-conforming use, which actually is more conforming to the neighborhood than what is there currently and what was there formerly, would be the way to go.
Now, you use a certain term in your testimony with respect to this type of apartments. What was the term you used?
It's workforce housing.
And where does that term come from, workforce housing?
It's a term of art that planners and zoners are using throughout the country to allow for affordable housing. Now, a lot of those regimes allow for greater densities because of the need for affordable housing, so that they could have certain bonuses that are given to them. I think one of the reasons why Allentown is studying this so much is because when you use such words, while there is a common definition that most of us would share, there's also legal definitions, and there's a lot of different things that a zoning ordinance that provides for affordable housing would have to contemplate in terms of bonuses and whatnot. What we're doing here, and looking at some of the council minutes from the last year or so, there was a request, well, how come developers aren't coming to the city of Allentown and working with us to do so? Well, we're here coming to the city of Allentown because there has been a demonstrable need to put affordable housing in the area, especially near the downtown corridor. We are not asking for any zoning change to allow for greater densities or greater bonuses. We're not asking for a whole-scale change. We're not trying to amend the zoning ordinance to do something which maybe the city of Allentown hasn't thoroughly investigated yet. What we're trying to do is change one non-conforming use to another to allow for the use which everyone in the city of Allentown says we need, but so far no one has really started that process yet. And I think with the types of plans that we have, which Dave, our engineer, will go through at some point tonight, hopefully, that I think the blue-collar, hard-working people of Allentown who are working at some of our establishments in the city of Allentown deserve a nice, clean place, new, fresh, near a park area, within walking distance to major companies, within a block or so away from public transportation. I think that that's a noble and honorable thing to try to do for that. And of course, you know, we see a need as a company, so why not try to fill that need?
Let me just go back one step. I think at one point I asked you what, if anything, you've done while you own this property to try to market the property.
Well, we marketed it in the late, I don't even know what the term of art is, the late aughts, the late 2000s, trying to have somebody come in. Once the property was changed to park, the ability for us, or really anyone, to use that property in conformity with the park district and do anything that's productive with it is just, you know, no one's going to build a museum, spend $10 or $15 million to put a museum there and hope people come. No one's going to build a park, at least a private developer, and donate that large, at least we're not in the position to do that, to donate such a large property when there's no return coming back to it. I do know that we've offered the property to the city of Allentown to put a park there, and that was rejected in 2007, 2008. We did have talked to certain developers that are in the storage business, and they look at the property, and again, there's not enough rooftops in the area. The property is not located in a major artery or thoroughfare where people can get to. It's a difficult property, and to try to develop that in consideration of the neighborhood around it and not take it back to its industrial roots, which we probably would have an issue with anyway, to try to clean up the property and make it into something nice, it's very difficult. And the Park District, as nice it is for the residents of Allentown to have parks to go to, I don't believe this property was contemplated, and I'm not sure how many other private parks that are owned that are 7 acres that are public's allowed to come onto when the developer or the landowner has to take the risk of having those people come onto the property as licensed guests or invited guests. And it's not practical.
Now, one of the things that the exhibits that you indicate you want to introduce tonight was the Lanta bus route exhibit. Do you have
Yes.
that exhibit?
Dave has.
Should
yes.
I do that with Dave?
Yeah. Well, no, I can discuss that, and I can show the board where we're talking.
And then if we have smaller, this would be exhibit. Seven.
And what is that, Mr. Malcolm? Is it 7 is one?
Pardon?
Go ahead, bring it forward, then we'll see.
Okay, can you tell us about Exhibit 7?
Certainly. This is an overhead picture, I believe, from Google or Bing Maps that we identified a 2-mile radius around our property. If you look at the dead center of our property, there's an outline in yellow. That yellow outline is the St. Elmo's property. You'll notice that there is a blue line that goes from the southwest portion and it kind of meanders up along Union Street and goes through or to the north of our property and goes up to the northeast. That's a Lanta bus route. As you can see, it's in walking distance from the St. Elmo Street and our property together. And what we tried to do on this, and I know it's very difficult to see, I'm having a hard time seeing them, but what we did is we tried to put some of the major employers in the city of Allentown on this within a 2-mile radius. And what you see here is to the northwest, you have the Wegmans grocery store. To the west, you have Dorney Park. To the southwest, you have Lehigh Valley Health Network. To the south of the property, you have Mack Trucks, Air Products, Wawa, another Lehigh Valley Health Network building. Within 1 mile walking distance from our property, you have St. Luke's Health Network, another Lehigh Valley Health Network property. To the east, you have PPL, and you have the PPL Center. All this is within a 2-mile radius of our property. I have a Fitbit on today, so maybe that should be in walking distance for some people, but if not, certainly it's on the bus route to get to and from the property. And again, it's outside of the neighborhood improvement zone, the Hamilton district, where a lot of the companies and whatnot are. But again, they're looking for a whole new growth of people coming in to be employed as professionals. And as the rents have been publicized in the Morning Call and other publications, those rent numbers aren't affordable for blue-collar people.
Okay, now, you also sent me a copy of a plan. I'm not sure I know the significance of this, but I'm sure you do. That's this one.
kind of believe this is superfluous considering our last exhibit, but this shows the 2-mile radius from the St. Elmo's property, showing probably a little bit better visual of the streets, where the Hamilton district is, how close we are to that, within a mile or a little bit more than a mile. But again, I think the previous exhibit shows where the different businesses are around the city of Allentown, where people could get to, and with public transportation or walking without necessitating cars or whatnot.
Okay,
May I interrupt, Ms. Mathis?
certainly.
I have a question. What is appears in A7 and A8 to be open space immediately to, I think it'd be the south of your property?
I believe that's a quarry.
Is it a quarry still?
The city of Allentown owns it, and I think they use it for storage and dumping of some materials or whatnot, but I don't believe it's not owned by any private company.
Well, at one point, it was owned by a private person, and I think they leased it to the city.
Okay.
And I kind of suspect that's still the case, but I'm not sure.
All right, that's fine. I just want some idea what
But
that was.
the quarry was there many, many years, and I think the city was filling the quarry in over a long period of time.
And to the north of that, there's playgrounds and there's a baseball field. It's a school that's right across the street. So if the likelihood that there would be a recreation for anybody living in the apartments, they certainly can go to the park system that's located, again, within walking distance, or if they need to go and play kickball right across the street, there's a public park for them to do so.
And then another exhibit, this 9 now?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson, what is the significance of exhibit 9?
This is a zoning map, and again, the St. Elmo's property is shown in the middle of the picture, and you can see where the creek runs adjacent to the west and to the south and a little bit to the north of our property. But what we're trying to show here is how close we are to the residential zones within the city of Allentown. Again, we are pretty much buffered right next to it. Again, the property is located in the Park District, but we're sort of sandwiched in between streets which are residential, zones which are residential, and again, we think that would be a benefit to having residential apartment units on the property.
I take it our argument is that what you're planning is much more consistent and less of a burden on the property as that concrete batch plant and storage.
Certainly. It's much less intensive in terms of dust, noise, vibrations, all those things that would happen there. You see that it's more in keeping with the neighborhood as opposed to an industrial type use or a warehouse storage type of use. Usually when you're in developing zoning ordinances and developing zones for uses, you have additional zones that are interfered with around it. Well, as you can see, there's not really any industrial use that's really around our property. There's a institutional use, I believe, to the north, which is school, Allentown School, or school district property. But around the property, there's not a transition zone that would go from, say, commercial to light industrial to heavy industrial. There's none of that. It's park in between two residential types of zones, and you have a use which historically was industrial. And I just, that wouldn't be very good planning if this was drawn today, knowing that a use that's industrial would be there today. You'd want to give it larger buffering between a industrial use, light industrial use, commercial use to residential uses.
Okay, before I call Mr. Hart, is there anything else you'd wish to add?
Well, you know, we have we've done quite a bit of research in at least the need portion of this, and with the city of Allentown. And I do want to reiterate that within the last couple of years, an article from WFMZ, New Allentown Development Director says any affordable housing ordinance needs research, data, info. That was by Louis Gambots, posted March 30th. I have a copy of that. That shows you that the city of Allentown is far from meeting the needs of some of its citizens or some potential citizens in terms of being able to house them affordably with the economy as it is. I have an article that was recently.
Make that as an exhibit?
Pardon?
You want to make that as an
Sure.
exhibit? Is this 10?
I have enough for the board and the exhibit for the board.
Excuse me, please.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
You may continue.
All right, so again, I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of this article because I wasn't there. I know the board can take judicial notice of it in terms of it being a reported article. But the idea of this is that there's a lot more steps that the city of Allentown needs to take in order to get to a place where it's comfortable implementing a workforce housing or affordable housing option within the city of Allentown. Any good citizen who reads the paper or knows what's going on in Allentown with the neighborhood improvement zone, that took many, many years for that to be established, and it's taking more years for that to be developed. This type of zoning just isn't necessarily a change on the map and putting one code in for the next. This is a large-scale development trying to figure out exactly what income levels that you want to be able to be put in there and what benefits, if any, are to be given to developers in order to incentivize them to go and build this type of housing. We're not asking for any of that. We're not asking for any incentives. We're not asking for any bonuses. We're not asking for anything. You know, I believe 120 units, apartment units on 7 acres, especially as large as it is, that can accommodate the parking and for the type of housing that we're looking for. It merits the request before the zoning hearing board tonight. Again, looking at some of the articles and items that are out there, we read that nowhere in America can full-time minimum wage workers afford to rent a 2-bedroom apartment. I don't want to put that into record as an article, but that's the headline. That people who are working blue-collar jobs, you want to say McDonald's or Walmart or jobs that are on the blue-collar scale, they're not able to afford to live in any place in the United States on minimum wage. Now, that's a policy argument that as a developer and as a zoning board, certainly we don't want to get into because we have no ability to change that. But it's a crisis out there for blue-collar people to afford to live and work in the places that they can find jobs.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else you wish to add?
At this point, no.
Board?
I have a couple of issues. I found your discussion about process kind of interesting. And I was wondering what's kept you from asking for an amendment from park to residential medium density or something that would be suitable to the site? As you probably know, you seem to have some knowledge of zoning. And as you know, that the zoning code and the comprehensive plan sets the policy statement for the zoning ordinance, and that the zoning ordinance is the policy, is the creation of the policy, or the fulfillment of the policy. And so it would seem appropriate to me that your first place, not the zoning hearing board, but the first place should really be the city council. And you've had a lot of time over the years.
I think there were efforts made by them to get the property rezoned, which were not successful.
Well, I don't see any of that in the file, and I haven't heard that from the discussion. I heard Mr. Thompson, I heard him say that this was the appropriate stop.
Well, it's the appropriate stop when considering a change of non-conforming use to another change of non-conforming use. I do know prior to my time with the company that such efforts were made by Mr. Attia and his partners to try to make this a district that would be more convenient for development, for residential development. And there was a long court case that I believe Mr. Malcolmus was involved with since 2003. I mean, it's not as if we've sat on our hands for 8 years and said, oh, now there's a problem.
No, but I haven't seen, excuse me, I apologize.
That's okay.
But I haven't seen anything in writing which says that amendment was proposed to the zoning ordinance. That would make the most sense.
Well, since the amendment or ordinance was changed in 2010, which I think you stated, and there have been amendments since that time that have been more in keeping with the neighborhood improvement zone and trying to, well, no, you can say that, but there were efforts made to change the current zoning from 2010 to allow for development because the policy of the city decided, or some policymakers believed that we needed a new type of direction for the city, and we needed to try to bring in more businesses and more people and everything to strengthen the economic ties of the city of Allentown. Now, that's 2010. Now we're talking is 2017. Obviously, economies change. Obviously, new needs are identified to try to accommodate those challenges. And the latest is workforce housing. Now we're sitting on property that is really, and admittedly, not really zoned that would allow for any type of development. It wasn't like we bought park property and said, okay, now we want to develop it. Apparently, there was a change that modified this to park property.
I'm going to interject a little bit here. Why is and certainly the applicant has the legal right to come before us and ask us for a change of non-conforming use. And to that end, we actually have a decision from the Lehigh County judge that overturned the zoning hearing board on three different occasions. And I'm reading through this, and not once did I say did she indicate that, you know what, this really should have gone to city council first. I don't know what we're talking about. This is the case that's before us. You can argue that you think the applicant should go to city council or not go to city council. The fact of the matter is they're before us. They have standing, and they're asking us to change one non-conforming use to another. I have a whole bunch of questions about the uses we're talking about, so if you have questions about that.
But no, I think the difference is that I think it is the proper form, because whenever we've had a change of use, I've had the same discussion with the developer, and I think it's appropriate, and I think for a matter of convenience, that they've left the door open so that they can decide which uses they want to develop. Why not single-family homes? Why not other varieties of residential uses? This is what they've chosen to do, and they're hoping that we'll go with their choice.
Mr. Salinger, there were efforts made. I know there were efforts made to convince the city to change the zoning ordinance.
I can read something in the record. In 2006, and this is from an article that was in the Morning Call by Emily Oppola. I don't know if she's here tonight, but from April 12, 2017, that in 2006, Mr. Attia proposed a 53 townhome community, which would have required a rezoning for housing. The city's planning commission recommended. Sorry. I'll read it over.
Okay.
In 2006, ATIA proposed a 53 townhome community, which would have required a rezoning for housing. The city's planning commission recommended a zoning change at the time over the objections of area residents who wanted the land to be turned into a park. Allentown City Council unanimously rejected the change that year. So there were efforts made, and I know looking through the file, it goes back to 2003, which was 9 or 7 years before I started working with the company. But I do know efforts were made, and again, there were a 2-year challenge with Judge McGinley, and we had to come back. I mean, this has been going on for over a decade.
Are there any other questions?
Oh, okay.
Other questions about these?
So if I understand you correctly, and I certainly wouldn't surprise me that you said you're coming before us with a concept of a use and not really a full-blown use. And I'm not saying that in a derogatory fashion, I'm just trying to understand, because I have not been involved in a case on this particular property probably since 2008. And there's been several since then and several before.
Certainly.
To refresh my memory, what use did your company finally determine to put to the piece of property? What's there now?
It's a self-storage business that is operating as of today.
Right. And how long has that business been operating, roughly? I mean,
5 years. 2012 was, I believe, when we had approval. I know we had a building that was used for storage at that point, and so it's been going on for 5 years.
right. And so that is a use, and Attorney Malcolmus, if you need to step in to help us here, that is the use that was approved by the zoning hearing board as part of application A64678.
That's the one, the 2012 decision.
Yeah, that was October 3rd, 2012.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so the use that's currently there now has been roughly in existence following that application.
That's correct.
But it has not been a successful use, obviously, for the reasons he previously testified.
But it was in use, and you built, I guess you were allowed to put 469 units. And how many did you actually construct?
We have 149, I believe, interior units in the existing building, and the occupancy of that storage hasn't given us the ability or given us the confidence that if we would build the other exterior outdoor buildings and put storage bins and whatnot inside them, that we'd have been making any headway on that. So we pretty much stopped with a wait and see approach to see how successful it would be, and obviously it's not as successful as we had hoped.
I don't think that that's necessarily a use of the decision of the zoning hearing board, because the decision of the zoning hearing board had many conditions, one of which was to enclose the whole area with a fence.
Certainly.
There were a lot of things. I believe that the use that's there now was permitted by the zoning officer simply because it was an existing use, but it was not a use of the, it was not, they did not use the approval of the board to make that use.
That's correct. That was utilized prior to 2012. In 2012, we had the zoning approval from the zoning hearing board, and it was a full-blown, standalone self-storage business, and we were not able to perfect that as we had believed we wanted to.
Among other things, it had to be completely fenced.
That's correct. And again, it didn't make economic sense to completely fence and start building when the demand wasn't there for that property.
And I think.
So I can be clear, Mr. Malcolm, so is the use that is presently being put to a use that comports with the relief granted in about 2009 at 62707?
That was,
What that was?
it's the 2000, it's being used, in a sense, partially in accordance with the 2012 decision, but
not to the extent, I guess.
not to the extent. As a matter of fact, I guess I'm testifying now, but I remember going to the zoning officer at one time and asking whether we could phase this application. Instead of doing everything at once, whether we could do this in phases. And And the answer came back that we could not do that in phases.
So again, the economic burden was basically for us to build everything, put a fence around it, and if they build it, hope they come. And we didn't have the confidence with the use that we had of the existing building that was going to happen. But we did follow the other conditions. We cleaned the property up, we took the stumps out, we took all the truck trailers off the property, all the cars, we did all that stuff, hoping that we could make a go of it, and it just didn't happen.
All right, so I have a follow-up question, and it's somewhat helpful, although.
I'm sorry, Mr. Arnott, I'm trying.
That's okay. I was involved in some cases going back to 2007, and I've reviewed some that I wasn't involved with that have happened since then. It appears that in many of those cases, and this is actually the first I've seen Judge McGinley's order too, so I'll leave some time to digest that, but I think I've gotten a sense of it. The previous cases, you had, most of the time it seemed like it was Peter Terry, who's certainly a well-known traffic engineer, had developed vehicle trips, speculations or traffic count generation reports based upon various proposed uses.
Sure.
And so while I certainly understand, and I really don't know what I'm prepared to do relative to a decision which we don't have plans, but one question seems pretty clear to me is that we need to get a sense for what the vehicle trips a day would be out of 120 unit apartment building.
Understood.
Is that something that you have,
We're not prepared to testify to that tonight. Mr. Terry is not here. We certainly be willing to agree to that, to come back at a later point and have Mr. Terry testify relative to that question, Mr. Unger.
That was our intention, he's just not available.
Yeah, he's not available.
It was our intention to have it there.
And again, I might have mischaracterized the nature of the site plan. We do have a site plan. We do have, because Mr. Art, again, he's probably the man to talk to, but we have developed a footprint that, and we can show you what these buildings would look like and where they would sit on the property and all that. But again, with Planning Commission being the necessary step, they may have different designs that they want, and then so there's a lot of different variations. But this is the best first start for us to figure out whether or not we are permitted to use it as that, and then we go from there. So again, I just want to characterize it. We do have plans. It's not as if we have a cartoon out there and we want you to improve that. It's just the use.
Thank you. I know you've got at least one other witness, and that's certainly your case to present. But hearing that, I'm certainly not in a position understanding what I do about Judge McGinley's order. I don't know that I'm in a position to make a decision on any use, because clearly the direction in the remands that we've been given is to evaluate various nonconformities against previous uses. And I honestly have no way that we could do that without, we've got traffic counts from Mr. Terry from almost every other application. We don't have any before us today. I'm sure that there are other things that we'll consider, but to me that's going to be a pretty significant thing that we'll consider.
That's a great point, because that's really the concern. When I understand the issue about the nonconformity, but the policy is set through the purpose sections of the zoning code. And my preference is to have the professional staff set the standards of what might be there. And just as you mentioned, we don't have a measure, for example, of the traffic. I have to admit that I'm kind of baffled by the discussion about the non-conforming use. I read Judge McKinley's rule, and I read Judge McCarthy's response to his opinion in the first, the zoning board's opinion, which said the same thing that I said. And I'm puzzled as to how to get beyond this, because how do we jump from the residential medium density? There was discussion about transition zones. How do we decide that something should be 120 multifamily units as opposed to, what was it, 59 single-family units or apartments before?
53.
53. So here we had 53. Now we have 120. The developer decided. It's not a matter of public policy anymore.
It's a comparison, one non-conforming use compared to another non-conforming use.
That is-
Basic law.
That is the test, and it sounds to me like the non-conforming use that is in existence right now is the interior storage and whatever traffic goes along with that, but we don't know how much. We haven't been told. And what will probably be a substantial increase in traffic.
Well, as I said, it's our full intention to bring Mr. Terry in to testify
Okay.
with respect to, and if you, that's our intention. Obviously, he can't be here tonight, but he will be here.
And that's what I was suggesting.
Okay, so do you want to go on with your case and then have Mr., is it Perry?
Terry.
Terry?
May I speak to
Sure.
my clients?
Yes, absolutely.
You're going to.
We believe that our next logical witness would be our traffic engineer.
Okay.
That being said, we would request that the matter be continued to the hearing you have, and then we'll hear with Mr. Terry, and then Mr. Hart will testify after that.
May I ask, and I'm guessing I know the answer, but have you signed the waivers in this case?
I didn't file the application, but I'm sure.
I believe we did because initially we had to amend the application from February, and we changed that application to this one, the non-conforming use, so I did. But I certainly will make certain, and Mr. Andreyko, I can send you an email or whatever tomorrow, saying that would further continue or waive the NPC time requirements. You can take this as my affirmation that I can follow with writing unless you have a form to sign today. I believe we looked at this today.
You probably did, but just to be safe, why don't you do it again?
Certainly. Don't mind doing that.
Okay. We would like to hear from the traffic man.
Typically, when we have a case that's continued, and we have objectors and parties in the audience, typically we reflect their contact information so that they don't have to look in the zoning or the newspaper for the rescheduled date, so that we can contact.
Notify them.
Okay.
And I will be here again for the next meeting, so if they have any questions or now or then, I'll be here for that.
Okay, so you will sign the 45-day waiver, and Tabitha will get the contact information for the objectors, and then we'll look forward to your expert witness next time.
So I'll make a motion that the application be continued at the applicant's request, subject to the signing of the waiver as well as re-advertisement fee.
Thank you very much.
Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So in case anybody didn't hear that, if you're here for case number 1, 1940 Fairview Street, that's been continued, but if you want to be notified of when the next hearing is going to be, so that you don't have to look in the paper, we'd ask you to give the secretary your contact information so she can mail you the notice.
How you doing?
See you again.
Oh, sure. Sorry.
Okay, Kathy, you collecting your addresses and names? Okay. I think we're probably ready to start case number 2.
Guys, good to go?
Yes, come forward. We're gonna wait till the gentleman finishes his, there he's done, okay, very good.
Mr. Ellis, can I turn to you? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yeah.
And your name?
My name is David Bodner,
B-O-D-N-E-R?
B-O-D-N-A-R, and I'm the owner of, or a member owner of 1518 Walnut LLC, which owns the property at 1518-1526 Walnut Street.
You say you're a member of that?
Yeah, it's an LLC.
Right.
I'm one of the 2 members.
Okay.
And we're, why don't you guys do it?
It's okay for him to be there, you can hear him well enough?
Very good.
And you swore him in?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Right, and what we're here for is, we have an existing 1,500 square foot space that was, used by an antique, it was used by, an antique guy for his showroom for appointment only. I mean, I don't know if you would call it retail or not. The city's not calling it retail, they're calling it offices. I believe it was retail. And we're renting it out to somebody to do retail in the used furniture type business. And we have parking, as you can see, designated right in front of the building. His space would be the double doors right there in the middle of the building. It's approximately 1,500 square feet.
Is that the whole building or the first floor?
It's just a small part of the first floor.
All part of it?
Right. The rest of the building has, the lower level has Lehigh Rug Service. Upstairs is Downtown Preservation League, has part of it. We have an antique guy in there. So that's what we're doing here.
So what was called offices covering about 1,500 square feet, you want to change to a used furniture sales store?
Right.
as retail, used furniture. And I'm still not really sure why they were calling it offices, because it wasn't offices, but according to the city, they didn't have the, so it kind of, you know, again, fits the neighborhood, and, you know, a lot of people, apartments in that area, they use. The candidate here can also obviously tell you a little bit more. Any other questions of the property owner?
Go ahead.
So you said there was previously an antique dealer. That was what was the last use of the 1,500 square feet?
It was an antique dealer. He occupied that space, which he used as like a showroom, and so it was by by appointment only. Okay, and he occupied another little part of the building that he had for his like office, and then he had antique cars on the second floor. Okay, but he just passed away last month. So
Okay, so how long was that use in operation, roughly?
He was there from the time I bought the building,
Which was?
2005.
So that use,
That use was there for as long as I owned the building.
we'll call that the previous use. So that use was there for a little over 10 years.
It was
Or longer.
longer, yeah. Ray Holland owned the building before, and he was in there with Ray for at least 10 or 15 years prior to that.
So long-established use. You said it was, so you know, days a week it was open, or was it a by appointment on any day?
This was by appointment only. It was more like a appointment only type antique place.
Do you have any sense of, you know, what level of foot traffic that he had come in and out in terms of customers a day or
And
customers
then
a week?
maybe a couple people a week by appointment.
Would that be a question for the property owner? You said that the proposed tenant is here?
He is.
Is any-
Okay,
You guys can-
let's talk to them.
Please raise your right hand. And do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Can I have your name?
Ari Kirnos,
Say it again.
K-R-I-E, K-I-R-N-O-S.
Thank you.
Could you speak into that mic a little better?
Hi, my name is Ari Kirnos, and I'm the tenant of 1518 Walnut Street.
Okay, you're presently the tenant, or you're the proposed tenant?
Proposed tenant.
Proposed tenant, okay, and what is it that you would like to do there?
We're trying to be like a second-hand store, like furniture, maybe some other types of like household stuff, basically.
And how many employees do you expect to have there?
For now, it's just me and my wife. That she's come to help.
I'm sorry?
My wife helps me once in a while.
And what hours of operation would you like to be open?
Probably like 10 to 6 daily, and then Sunday 10 to 3.
So 10 to 6 what days?
Weekdays,
Weekdays, okay, Monday through Friday? And Saturday?
same.
Same?
And then Sunday a little bit less hours. Like 10 to 3 with less traffic.
Let's see what questions raised here about parking. Parking's not an issue for this kind of use?
Office space and retail is 1 for every 200 square foot, it's the same. So
The same.
Non-conforming use. Parking requirements will change. Right. The parking requirements don't change from office to retail. And the square footage for parking space per square footage is the same as the use. There's no additional parking required.
usually had a more intense parking requirement, you might have one. In addition to used furniture, you said other stuff. Can you be more specific as to
Like maybe like household items, like maybe,
appliances?
no, not appliances.
Appliances, okay, so what household items?
Like glassware, pots and pans, and maybe some like plating covers and stuff like that.
Any food products of any kind?
No, no food.
Proposing any sign?
We can use maybe the window as a sign to put like some vinyl stickers. There's like a large display in the window, so we can use that as a sign.
Yeah.
You have any idea what kind of customer traffic you will have?
Like,
How many customers a day?
hopefully a lot, but it's not too many. We have a lot of space to accommodate a lot of products, but maybe 15 to 20 people a day.
No, I would just. I
think it actually specifically says we can, in the TMDO says we can approve certain provisions, so how, we should probably hammer some of that out here. So it'd be a non-illuminated window sign, how large of a sign would you like, how big within the window area?
Maybe like, say, 5 by 4 or something. That's some dimension in mind.
I'm sorry, you said 5 by 4 and then you said something.
Like, I don't really have a dimension in mind. I didn't measure the window. I'm not sure how would it be. Or maybe we can use, there's like a little metal sheet placed around the door and above the window, so we might just put a name on there and not illuminate it.
Non-illuminated window sign, but not to exceed X. In terms of location, I'm fine with it working out.
Okay, we don't have any other questions. I think there were some objectors, though. Yes, sir. Would you come forward, please?
Either place, you can either sit there or sit here, whichever you're more comfortable.
I'll stand.
Right
Speak
there.
into the microphone.
Yeah, right there. And
And raise your hand, sir. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Can I have your name, please?
Bill Armstrong.
Bill Armstrong, thank you.
I live on Walnut Street, about 2 blocks from this place. I'd like to point out, first of all, this is a going enterprise already. And it looks junky outside. He has spread his stuff all over the parking areas. I question where he's gonna come up with one parking space for every 200 square feet, so that's either 7 or 8. I'm not even sure there's 8 across that he can use. So I question the parking and I question the use of the parking area to display his merchandise.
Do we have pictures that show that? You see anything there, Mr. Armstrong?
No, I don't.
You don't, okay.
I don't see anything in these pictures that shows the displayed items for sale that are out on the parking area.
Yeah, describe what you've seen.
Oh, golly. Karen, can you help me?
Oh.
She's
Well,
not
let's,
sworn.
yeah, let's,
I have.
we can listen to
I'm
her,
sorry.
but after
I've
you're done.
seen, baby type equipment, cribs, strollers. I've seen, I believe, clothing out there also for sale. And as he describes it, other various household items. I can't even remember seeing furniture. Perhaps that's inside.
Okay. All right,
Any other points?
No, sir, just wanted to make you aware of that. Okay.
Other objection?
Yeah, I just,
oops, there, I had that off again, I'm sorry.
And do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? And your name? Karen Armstrong.
No, I'm sorry, the last name was again?
Armstrong,
Oh, Armstrong, okay.
again.
Your business Armstrong,
Yes.
okay. Go ahead, tell us.
I just wanted to reiterate what Bill said about the things that were, probably 6 or 8 bicycles and all kinds of stuff, filling the entire area.
The parking area?
Yes, and all kinds of junky things in hideous colors. The place looks like a permanent flea market. And, you know, for those of us who live 2-3 blocks down the street, it's not attractive, and it's all day, every day. You see all these things out there. We were absolutely flabbergasted when we drove by and saw this. It's been there for, what, a month or so.
Okay, so over the last month or so, you've been witnessing these
Yeah.
goods for sale in the parking lot?
Daily, yes.
Okay.
Perhaps not when it rained. I didn't walk down there.
Yeah, and what?
I haven't walked down the street when it was pouring rain, so maybe they weren't out then,
Oh,
but
okay.
on a normal day, everything's out. And it does seem to take up all the parking spaces.
Well, they snapped these pictures when nothing was there, huh?
Of course not. I mean, it was fully in business, a fully operating business, and yet he just said that he was proposing to be the tenant, and that kind of surprised me, but he's clearly been a tenant for some time.
This picture was just taken May 31st.
What time of day was it taken? 9:55 in the morning, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway.
Any questions, Mr. Unger?
No question.
Mr. Salinger? Any?
I know there's a regulation on outside display of materials,
We can make it a
and I'm
condition.
trying to find it.
I think we make it a condition.
Okay.
Okay, I don't think we have any other questions, Mrs. Armstrong. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Was there another objector, or just, I think it was just 2, wasn't there? No interested persons, okay. Mr. Bodnar,
Yes, sir.
could you come up, question or 2? Is he a proposed tenant or is he an existing tenant?
He is, well, it's a proposed tenant. The city, he originally went to the city and they told him, like I said before, he was permitted, it was a permitted use. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't a permitted use. That's why we're here.
Okay, so how long has he been there?
I'm not, maybe a couple months or so.
Okay.
Not that, I mean, but that's how it got. He went to the city, proposed, told him what he was doing, and it was, an existing, that's why I explained to you that it was an existing retail, not an office, but then according to the city, it was an office somehow, so that's why we came here, that's why we're here.
Okay.
So then the city said, oh, okay, just fine, just go to zoning and get it, you know,
Yeah.
so it's, yeah, technically it's still proposed, because we're not approved. That's why that's kind of why we're here now. And we do, if you can see, if you count the parking spaces, we do have, there's a handicap right in the front, and then we have an additional 7 spaces right there, all designated just for them. Plus, there is some street parking, you know, right there. There's street parking on Fulton and right there. I guess my other question would just be regarding the signage, or is there a, you'll iron that out, is what you're saying? You'll iron out what
What's permitted, exactly.
what is permitted, actually.
All right.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right. A couple different points. I mean, from a change of nonconformity, the old use was really minimalistic and was by appointment only, but this particular property is in the TNDO overlay and grants some additional use and some additional flexibility for non-residential use. So in this particular case, we're talking about 1,500 square feet within a much larger building that has a pretty low level of use. Downtown Preservation League is open maybe twice a week for hours. And they also sell, historic doors and windows. So in some ways, used furniture is not inconsistent with that. So using the TNDO guidance and looking at the special exception requirements, I think the proposed use is pretty low in intensity. I mean, we're talking 15 to 20 customers per day. I think it's a consistent use with the building. So also per the TNDO overlay, we are granted the opportunity as a zoning hearing board to place reasonable conditions, specifically on hours of operations and others. So I think the use is suitable. It's a little bit more intense than the previous use, but again, that's not the test in this particular case because of the TNDO. So I would make a motion to approve the proposed use and with it a non-illuminated window sign not to exceed 20 square feet in a location deemed suitable by the zoning office. I would indicate a condition that there be no outdoor storage or display of any of the wares for sale. And relative to the hours of operation, I think 10 to 6 Monday through Saturday is very reasonable. Most of the time, this is in a residential zone, but it's obviously a commercial building in terms of its nature and history. 10 to 6 is not particularly horrible during the week because most people are out during the day. But I would indicate, 10 to 6 Monday through Friday I'm fine with. I'm okay with some Saturday hours. I would suggest that maybe 10 to 3 on Saturday and then closed on Sunday. And that's something that we've done typically on TNDO properties where we've granted pretty considerable flexibility on allowing some commercial uses in a residential zone as the ordinance was intended, at the same time as a residential zone and having some day of respite or protection from the activity of a commercial space, I think is also important. So those would be the 3 conditions that I would propose, or at least ask my board member, my colleagues to consider.
I would agree.
I would too, and you said closed Sunday.
Yep.
Yes.
So 10 to 6 Monday through Saturday, 10 to 3 on Saturday. I'm sorry, 10 to 6 Monday through Friday, 10 to 3 on Saturday, and closed Sunday.
No outside display or storage
of any goods, and then
signage.
1, a non-illuminated window sign not to exceed 20 square feet in a location deemed suitable by the zoning office. And otherwise, all uses as testified.
Do you have a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You gonna vote out?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
folks.
Thanks.
All right, with that, no further business, meeting's adjourned.